How do you create pages in your Amazon brand store? I'm David Goldenberg, a 20-year digital marketing vet. I recently led the marketing for a brand that I grew from 30 million a year to 57 million a year. And I started my PPC agency, 11 Ads for Brands, based on that. Watch us through to the end in order to make the most profitable store possible with the highest converting pages possible. So first of all, what pages should you create at all in your store? Second of all, there are different types of pages you can add to your store. How do you know what types to use, and how do the designs differ between, for example, a category page versus a subcategory page, a product page, etc.? What content do you need in each of your pages? And of course, in a very technical aspect, how do you literally add the pages to your store? How do you create them? What do you need to click on? And so forth. So first of all, how do you know what pages to make? And the answer is that you want to look at how are you going to drive traffic to your store. And in most cases, that means sponsored brand ads. And the sponsored brand ads need pages that are relevant to the keywords you're targeting. So the first idea is that you need to figure out what does your keyword research tell you in terms of the themes you need on your store. Let me give you an example. So if you're selling mirrors, wall mirrors, right? So you might have a general category page for all your wall mirrors. And then within that, you might have subpages based on, for example, different styles. Okay, so modern, boho, etc. Now, what do you do if you have multiple ways to shop the same products in your category? So continuing with that mirrors example, you might find that you have size as a primary aspect of the keywords you're targeting, but you might also have color, right? And you may also have things like style, right? What's the decor type? And so you don't have to sacrifice one for the other. You can simply make a group of pages for the different sizes of your mirrors, right? So let's say, I don't know, 15 to 25 inches, 25 to 40 inches, and then let's say 40 inches plus. Likewise, you can have different pages for each of your colors and different pages for each of your styles. And even if a style only has one or two products, that's okay. Now, what you want to do is, if you're going to break it down like that, you have one category page for the size, and then within that you'll have subpages for each of the sizes, a category page for color, a category page for style, and then the relevant subpages for each of those. I forgot to mention one more thing, and that is that in the Amazon product pages, you'll see that there's a visit brand X's store links like this under the product titles on your product pages, and that drives traffic. Now, that traffic used to all go to the home page, okay? But now it's also going to deeper pages in the store. The problem with this is that the deeper pages don't necessarily actually have the product that they were browsing on them. And it seems to be running by some kind of an AI that Amazon is working in the background. So what you want to do is have, ideally, at least every product that is in stock and in your catalog show up on at least one page in your brand store. And so you want to keep that in mind when you're choosing what pages to create. Let's talk about what kinds of pages you need to make. So there's at least two different types. There's category pages and subcategory pages, in addition, obviously, to your home page. So what's the difference between running a category page and a subcategory page in terms of how you design it? Now, the category page needs to funnel traffic to the subcategory pages. So its goal is a little bit different, whereas the subcategory page needs to send traffic to product pages. Okay, so this needs to send to subcategories, and this one needs to send to product pages. Okay? Now, this is going to affect how you design these pages. And what you need to understand is that to send traffic to a subcategory page, the top of your page needs to look like this. Okay, so you have your graphic header. Oh, there's an A there at the top. And then below that, what you want to do is have images that represent your subcategories, right? And that link to them. And that helps you to funnel the traffic through from the categories to the subcategories. Now, if you go to the subcategory pages, once you've been through the header, okay, your next thing is not going to be links to subcategory pages because you're already on the subcategory page. So what you want to do is basically have your product grid over here featuring, 6 to 9 products. You don't want to do too much because then people get overwhelmed by choice and they don't make a choice. But you want to give them enough choice so that they feel that the decision was meaningful. They eliminated some options that they didn't like and they found something that was suitable. But you don't want to get into all kinds of other junk beforehand. So that means you don't want to have a video over here, because anyways, you've got videos in your enhanced brand content on your product pages, right? Also known as A+ content on the product pages. So don't put a video here above your product grid. Just let the products speak for themselves and let them draw people into your product pages. Now, with the category pages, aside for having your subcategory links over here at the top of the page, what you also want to do is you also want to have your product grid down there. And the reason is that some people are just impatient or they're in a rush and they'll already click through and buy from your category page. They don't feel the need to narrow things down more. And that corresponds to people who search 1 or 2 word, very broad keywords, and they make their purchase decision already right off the bat. Okay, great. We've talked about how you make a category page and a subcategory page in terms of what content you should be putting on there and what content you should not be putting on there. Now, the question is, how do you actually add the content? And the idea that Amazon bases its store builder on is that they give you little templates into which you put in your content. And those templates are called tiles. And each tile fits a different kind of content. For example, you have an image tile, you have a text tile, you have a product tile. So I want to explain to you what tiles you should use in your brand store to get the highest conversion rates possible. Okay, let me give you a quick word about what product tiles you need to use when you're making those category and subcategory pages. And basically you need primarily, for showing the products, you need a product grid or a product tile. Okay, meaning an individual product tile. And the reason that you want to use a product grid or a product tile is that they will automatically show your reviews. There are other tiles that you can use, but what happens is they hide your reviews, and that's a key persuasive element, right, to get people to just click through in the first place, and on top of it, to buy. So why eliminate that key thing when you're working so hard usually to get reviews in the first place? Now, if you're going to make product pages on your store, do the following. First, you put in your product tile, right at the start so people can click through if they're interested. Then put in your video. That's usually a pretty persuasive and engaging element. And then you can have in your infographic and other persuasive elements, such as, for example, a comparison chart with different specs to help people choose between that product versus other ones in your catalog that might be similar to it. So now that we've gone through what content to add to your pages and what pages you should be making and how to add the content to your pages, let's talk about where you need to click within the Amazon interface in order to get those pages made and have the right content added to them. So over here, I'm in a template store. It's not a real client store. I try not to share real client data that's identifiable but give somebody an edge. So I click here on add page without AI assistance. Usually you don't need it. It's a pretty simple process. So I go page name. Let's say I want to make something for hanging shelves. Okay. And you need to fill this in. Hanging shelves for displaying your prize possessions, let's say. Okay. I don't really like any of these because they require you either the product collection, product highlight marquee, to having all kinds of extra tiles and junk that really you don't need because the page creation process is actually really simple. I just like blank template, create a page. You see over here that they're giving me a header from my store's homepage. Basically, if I wanted to change that, so I come here to header, I click the three buttons, edit section, okay, and I can upload new, choose from creative assets, and likewise, I want to make sure I do that on mobile as well. At least in some cases, uploading to one doesn't upload to the other, and so you want to make sure that you just have both versions of your website covered. Okay, now when I'm done with uploading my header, I need to click done. Obviously, that's kind of like your save button. And I want to do two things here. So supposing this is my category page, like I said before, I want to make sure that I'm also adding images that will link to the subcategory pages, because that's my primary goal for the category pages, to drive traffic to the subcategory pages. And from there, they can choose the product that suits them. So the next thing we need to do is add a new section, and we're looking for the image tile, okay? And what the image tile does is it gives me an image. So as you can see, I've uploaded here an image of some hanging wall shelves, okay? And we're just gonna give this a little title. So we'll call this large hanging shelves, okay? And over here, I would link that to a page for large hanging shelves, just we haven't created that yet. So we can do that in a moment. We'll do done. And now I want to create a sub page so that I can link to that. So I'm going to go add page without AI assistant, large hanging shelves, large hanging shelves. Doesn't matter, I'm just creating this so that you can see what it looks like afterwards when I come back to the hanging shelves page. You can see this is also a sub page, and so it'll appear over here under the hanging shelves navigation. So that is how you make tabs, right? Some people ask how you can make tabs. That's the way to do it in your Amazon brand store. And when I come back here to my hanging shelves page, I can now click this image and go hanging, and it'll show me the choice of pages I can link it to. Obviously, I don't want to link it to the same page we're on already, so I go large hanging shelves. And there you go. Now people see this text, they can click through to the category page. Again, I'm going to click done to save the work. And the next thing, so I would add an additional link to, example, small hanging shelves. Once I do that, I want to add another section for my product grid. And that is basically going to allow me to display the different products I have. So just for the sake of the example, we're going to go with hanging shelves. Okay, this is from all brands because, again, like I said, this is just a demo brand store. And you need to add at least 4 products onto your product grid, okay? Otherwise, you need to use the product tile. The product grid requires at least 4 products. And you want to make sure you check hide out of stock products. You wouldn't imagine how many stores are showing products that they don't actually have available in their store. So not only does it look unprofessional, more importantly, you miss the sale. So that's how you do it. And you go done. That's it. If you want to be thoughtful about how you order these products and what order to put them, so what you can do is something like this. You can use Amazon's brand filters here on the side. Is obviously not a very important filter for this category because of it being way down in the middle of the page. But if I wanted just the hanging shelves from Closet Made or from IKEA, Whitmore, etc., I could do that, right? So for example, if I'm doing this for Simple Houseware, let's say, I would click that and then it would show me, okay, this is the order in which you should show the products because this one is probably selling best. And in fact, you can see that 300 sold in the past month, only 50. Then here's 100, here's 600. So how come this one doesn't show up first over here, this one with 600 sold in the past month? And the answer is because it's less relevant specifically to this keyword hanging shelves. More people are just going to go for the individual unit when they search that keyword as opposed to the set, but there's still enough people who will buy a set that it's worth showing in your first few products. You can choose more than 4 products. As I said earlier, I recommend 6 to 9. And that's how you would do it. So you can, download from your Helium 10 extension, you can scrape these ASINs, or you can just go to your own catalog and get the ASINs that are relevant. I like doing it with Amazon search so that Amazon itself tells me which of my products are most relevant. And if your brand's not showing up in the navigation, then what you can do is you can just search for the brand over here on the side and write, for example, Closet Made or IKEA or whatever your brand is. A couple quick tips I forgot to mention earlier regarding the header. You see over here it says living room decor. Obviously that's not going to be relevant over here if I'm working on my hanging shelves page. Right, this was just inherited basically from the homepage header. But what I want to do is I want to at least put my keywords over here. So for example, hanging shelves. And more logically, right, I also want to have pictures here in the header that show what my product is, ideally in a lifestyle image. So that is number one, that you want to adapt the header to show the keywords at the very least, and ideally also the products that are featured in that page. And what that does is it helps to reduce what's called the bounce rate, the percentage of visitors who leave within just a few seconds of arriving at your page. Because when they come from an ad that says, for example, come shop hanging shelves, if they immediately see the keyword hanging shelves in the header, they're like, oh, I got to the right place. If they see living room decor, or if they just see home grates and nothing more, maybe they'll stick around to browse, maybe they just leave, but you just paid for that click. So why not take a little bit more effort and confirm they're in the right place? That's number one about the headers. And the last thing is, even though you see your page here the way you've designed it and everything else, you're not actually live until you go submit for publishing. I'm not clicking it right this second because there's not really a live store. There's no point in bothering the moderation team on Amazon for that. But you need to remember to do that, otherwise this is just a draft. Now if you like this video and you want to find out, okay, great, this is how to add pages to my store, but how do I get more traffic to the store? I recommend you check out this case study we made on the Store Spotlight form of sponsored brand campaigns. Get 3 links to your store pages as opposed to just linking to individual products. That allows you really to get phenomenal click-through rates and conversion rates on some of the most competitive keywords on Amazon. We've used it on top 100 keywords in the whole system and done really well with them. So you can see that the case study covers, how we made hundreds of thousands on these keywords at very good click-through rates, great market share basically. And I think you'll learn a lot because hardly anybody is talking about this, if at all, and it will help you get the most value also out of your sponsor brand store. See you there.